Automation Nation, Automation, Automation Nation, Automation, Automation Nation, around the nation. Automation, Automation Nation, Automation, Automation Nation, Automation, Automation Nation, around the nation. Welcome to the Automation Nation podcast, the show for business leaders, tech aficionados, and those who are just simply curious about where technology and business are going. Automation Nation is your gateway to understanding automation, AI, and the future of business. Don't get left behind. Tune in now and subscribe for more. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Automation Nation conversation. Got a great guest here with me today, Andrew Amann. He has some insight in regards to AI business, how to use it. He has done he's worked in multiple different industries. He's had multiple different businesses. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio because, there's a lot of different lanes we can go down today, Andrew, a lot. But I think just to keep our viewers keep them in a couple lanes. What's important to know about Andrew is that he's the founder of 14 companies with 3 exits. He's the owner of 2 patents and a founder of the agency intelligence community. Now, today, Andrew is a speaker and a leader in developing AI solutions for all types of businesses. Okay, all types. And now, Andrew, building these solutions. First of all, welcome to the show. But before you even say one thing, why in the heck should people even be interested in AI solutions? Why? Because some people don't even think you should be interested. Why should they be interested in this?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Great introduction. And I think the change that's happened in the last 2 years is AI has become more mainstream. But we've been building AI products for the last 8 years now. And when it was machine learning, there was a lot of return on investment of being able to predict results, whether it's predict product results, predict different inventory stock turns that you have in manufacturing, or predict different flights. Depending on the industry, there's a lot of predictions that could be had to help you make better decisions and stronger decisions. Now with the ChatGPT and the Gen AI of the world, we're starting to see a lot of language and reasoning. And so when you're using reasoning, you're interpreting how workflows happen inside of an organization, whether it's in manufacturing, supply chain, it could be in finance, any industry really. They have workflows, and a lot of humans have filled in those gaps in the past. And so what we're seeing in the last probably 12 or 15 releases that we've done in the last year, the return on investment has gone from years down to months. So you can invest a few $100,000 into a piece of software or some digital transformation software. Either it's custom software with us, or some sort of product that you're finding off the shelf. And whatever cost you had in the past, you're starting to see that cost be more efficiently used for other resources inside of your company. And that return on investment, like I said, is becoming months. And so you're able to make millions of dollars with that single decision.
There you go. And I wanted to open up with that question. Why AI? Because your return on investment is fast, your efficiency goes up, and people are seeing that return on investment light speed now. It used to take years, and now they're seeing it in months, and some even faster. We don't talk about those because we don't want people to get too excited, but sometimes it happens even faster. I know you've seen that, but it's all about understanding what to do. So before we jump into your thought tank, because I know it's a deep tank, we're powered by Simply Automate, Andrew. So we always ask our guests this first question. If you could simply automate one thing in your personal life, what would that be?
Yeah, I was listening to a few other podcasts, and I was prepped for this question. So I think one of the things in my life specifically that I would try to automate is the workflow throughout the day of scheduling, maintaining, and keeping a schedule so that everybody is on task and everybody has familiarity of what the meeting is that we're entering into. I've started to dabble a little bit with it using Zapier and some off-the-shelf tools, but I think it would be great that before every single meeting anyone in my company got into, that they had a brief, an agenda, some information about that meeting, maybe some email history, maybe some calendar insights from the last meeting or some summaries from the last meeting, so that we all walked into the meeting with an agenda, a plan, and some history of why we're there.
Ooh, I like that. That's the first time someone's broken it down that detail. Yeah, that's good. That helps people. That helps us all stay in alignment and get to work and get to work quick and have less waste.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it would keep everybody onto the agenda, so maybe the meetings would go quicker overall.
Yes. Yeah, I just love those hour and a half meetings where we literally get nothing accomplished. I love those.
Yeah. That happens all the time, right? And then you look back and you realize that there was no agenda, there was no plan, and we sat there for an hour and a half just going in reverse.
Okay, man. Speaking of reverse, man, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people are going backwards in their thinking about when it comes to AI automation?
Backwards in their thinking, I think a lot of people are being very tentative. They're getting scared about the cloud. And so they're worried that what happened with the cloud in the past is going to happen again with AI. And I think that's a journey that people have gone through. It's kind of like having a scar. You remember that scar, and you remember the pain and the process it took for your company to adjust to the new paradigm, which was cloud computing at the time. But as we advance into the AI future, I think a lot of CEOs that had gone through that cloud transformation are a little worried that, is this truly now the right time? Are we ready for this? Is this actually the time that I should adjust into AI, or should I wait and see everybody else do it, see if they fail? And then if they don't, then maybe I'll try it. So I think it's more tentative approach into AI rather than trying to go backwards.
Mm. Being more mindful about what you need to do. Exactly. Right.
Yep.
And so on that same kind of line, how do you determine which AI solutions, and how does a company, because that's the big thing too. You can have paralysis analysis because there's so many things to analyze that I don't even know what I'm looking at. So now I'm just frozen stuck. Or sometimes you can just do too much that you don't need, and now you're going in the wrong direction. So how do we get through all that?
Yeah, so we've learned it used to be easier in the AI world, because when somebody was interested in doing an AI solution, it was honestly in the ML time series, predicting products, predicting revenues, predicting different aspects of their business. And so there's a lot of machine learning involved. But nowadays, what people need to understand is that there's a reason why they need to go into AI, but they need to pick a KPI that is truly going to change their business. And so we do workshops now, which has a quad chart, of which we all do 2x2 charts nowadays, right? But the quad chart is basically business feasibility and technical feasibility. If we can maximize both of those, where the technology is definitely something that's possible, but the return on investment is very high and the technology is rather easy to adapt to, that is something that'll live in the top right corner and something we can tackle early on. But deciding all of those on the chart is sometimes confusing. Yeah. A lot of CEOs will say, it'd be great if I could just have a chatbot. But the technical ability of that would be in the bottom left-hand quadrant, because they'd have to change not only the human workforce, but they'd have to change the tendencies. They'd have to change where the information's coming from. They maybe have to change how that information is being displayed, maybe create some rules of what the humans generally know of how to respond to chats that they didn't document. So therefore, they have to train the AI. So that can be very technically challenging, making it a longer investment into the technology itself to get it up to speed. And maybe the business feasibility is very high. But what we truly look for when a business sits down with us is what is in the top right quadrant, what is easy to build and has a large return on investment.
How about I like that. That's a good model to follow. A good model to follow for sure. Well, let's talk about maybe a use case, something that a project you worked on where you've seen the impact, and AI has made a measurable impact. Let's talk about that. That's always good for people to wrap their minds around things that are actually happening too.
Sure. So there was a consulting firm, I'll call them, that came to us in the prison space, and they had a lot of consultants that were doing what's called PSRs. They were reviewing PSRs, which is a very tedious process. You have to understand the ins and outs of the type of criminality that somebody had done in the past. And so to review that PSR, there's a lot of human intervention that happens of trying to understand what the crime was, what the judge is going to allocate, what is going to happen in that court case or in that courtroom based on the criminal activity. And the consultant would have to go back and forth, look up previous court cases, do research, and truly understand what type of crime this was. And what we had figured out is that the actual product itself is very repetitive based on the idea of, if you look at previous cases, there's a very similar use case of if somebody does something very criminal or very high, there's a very similar use case to somebody else that has that same experience or that same crime. And so by comparing them and analyzing that, we were able to try to reduce the time it took to review that court case. And we actually took it down 95%. I think it's 90% officially, but we're seeing sometimes where we're reducing the time of review 95% reduction. So if something was taking 20 hours before, now it's taking less than an hour to put that research and that report together.
Wow.
So if you're paying contractors by the hour, you can imagine that's saving the company a whole bunch of money, but it changes the other part of the equation. And so I like to say they can keep all of their employees, which they did, and they can increase revenue per employee because those employees are now able to get to more cases in the same amount of time that they worked in the company. And you're able to produce more revenue when you can get to more cases.
Oh, man.
So that's one use case where we doubled the revenue at that point because you're just seeing massive returns from how those consultants are working throughout their day.
And that's one of the biggest things about automation. One of the biggest benefits of when you talk about intelligent automation, that is because you cut down on the amount of time that would have to be done by the human worker. This is what people need to understand. It's the human workers who we care about. The human worker is who has all those tasks. If you can take those tasks off the human worker's plate, then they can actually do more human things like networking, branding, speaking to people, building, being creative, right? Instead of being bogged down. And so not only does that free them up to be more creative, but it also gives the company an opportunity to be more effective, which allows them to raise more revenue. So now it's like a circulation of goodness that's happening around here, man. I like it.
And what the negative side that you hear all the time is that employees will be replaced. But if you look across the spectrum of Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and any of the companies we're working with, employees are not being replaced. They're not being hired as quickly. I would agree with that. But you're also seeing the capabilities of a single employee producing more revenue for that company within their 8-hour time span. One of my favorite use cases that we have is we worked for an insurance company, and the people that were working at the insurance company had to take sales calls. And if you've ever seen or tried to acquire insurance before, it's very confusing. Like there's different life insurance policies, there's different words that they use that you're just not familiar with. So you can imagine a salesperson, if they had 16 slots in a day, every half hour, 8 hours a day, they would probably get 10. I think the actual numbers were more than 6. They would have 6 or 7 failed calls throughout that day. So that's the time that the company is paying that salesperson to sit in their chair. And as soon as they pick up the phone, they know it's a bad sales call. So either they hang up and they only last for a minute, and now they have 28 minutes of downtime before they pick up that next sales call. So our job was simply to qualify those sales before they went to the sales team. And it's a very simple task when you think about it. Is there's 16 slots. Can I get high quality sales calls for the insurance company at a high rate so that they can fill 15 or 16 slots in their day with high quality? And once we did that, we're creating millions of dollars of revenue without changing any of the employee structure across the business. And I think something like that is where we should be thinking of the opportunity that AI can have, the goodness that it can create from people that knew they were wasting time and wish they couldn't or didn't have to.
Oh, it's big. That's big. And for those who are listening, and kind of to recap, the biggest aha moment in that process with those sales reps is that they no longer had to waste time on calls that weren't going to work. Calls that weren't beneficial. They only talked to those who were. And so that in itself, because I know I've run sales teams and been around sales teams, we can spend eons just doing nothing. So if we could just focus our time and energy, and also that does something also for the energy of the sales rep. Because if you got to keep picking the phone up and listen, I don't care how trained you are, if you got to keep going through the process and there's nothing going on, your momentum and energy will begin to dip. But if you can get right into the flow, there you go. And now your numbers start to do a different change. That's good. I like that. I like that. Okay. What industries do you see what do you think benefit the most? And this is like a really broad question, but
no,
in your opinion, what have you been seeing?
It's more narrow than you think. I think I've had about 300 sales calls this year, or 300 opportunities to work with different clients. And the two that have really bubbled up in the last 6 months is legal and manufacturing. I think those two spaces particularly have a reckoning coming because a lot of the work was whether tedious or it was just overpriced. I think for legal specifically, I think the price of a lawyer is skyrocketed. And the amount of time it takes to do the actual task for the lawyer is not as much. The research, the gathering of the information, the knowledge, especially if you work with a really great lawyer, the knowledge that they have sometimes can just make the cost be $900 an hour, but you only have to get 15 minutes before he gets you a perfect document without any issues in it. And so that $900 is plenty worth it. But it's very hard to see those pinnacle lawyers that are just so good at their job that 15 minutes of work solves everyone's contract negotiations. We all know that legal can drag on, but I think the high cost is an opportunity for AI to come in and reduce that and make it more reasonable, I think, for individuals to have a very good lawyer, but without that $900 price tag. But I'm truly seeing one of the biggest changes I've had in the last 2 or 3 months is the conversations with the manufacturing company.
Okay.
The best example I can give to an analogy is China has gone through a very big transformation because of the invention of the cell phone. And if you know China's history, they kind of skipped over the landline. The way their country was laid out, it wasn't as advantageous to lay telephone lines between towns. And so if you look at the population of China, it's very much on the outside. And that was designed, one, from communication and probably roads. And so by having a very difficult opportunity to reach the rest of China, the cell phone allowed them to prosper because they could skip over the infrastructure that's required for landlines. And I think the same thing is happening in manufacturing. Manufacturing was never really an advocate for the cloud. They just didn't have enough money. The margins weren't high enough. And they never saw the true advantage of moving their information from a local server, which they had paid a lot of money for, and they had an IT person sitting in their shop. And especially with MRP and ERP systems, you do need to worry about stock turns and inventory, but you want to keep your data secure and in-house. And so the cloud truly wasn't the revolution for them, and it wasn't the right time. But when you look at AI can actually work with 1980s antiquated systems just like humans can, right? And so all manufacturing shops, I've been in manufacturing shops with floppy disks. And if that information lives on a local device inside of a shop, AI is a perfect candidate to bring that information out without installing some huge cloud software or new CRM or brand new ERP system invented by the Oracle 7.0. Like, you truly can just take an AI system as if a human was looking at that data, extract it out, and use it for decision making. And it transforms manufacturing. We've seen it done a few times now, and it's one of the biggest changes and effects you can have at a business, because they're skipping over 10 years of what everyone else has gone through. And so they're just like, their eyes light up and they're like, wow, this is even possible. I didn't even know we could do this type of stuff so quickly. So those are the two industries that I think are seeing the biggest impact.
That's good. That's good. Okay. And this is a futurist question, and no one really has the full answer, but we have little pieces that we can all put together as little puzzle pieces. What do you see for the future in regards to AI, automation in business? Because we're moving fast, and just to give you a little context, we're moving so fast. If you think about from the dawn of man until 2003, the amount of technology that we've advanced, we get more. We have more information that's produced in a couple days than from the dawn of man until 2003. That is a very interesting stat. And what that really means is that we have so much information, so much technology, so many advancements, and it's happening quicker than ever. Another example, we had the car. Well, we had horses, then we had cars, and then the airplanes were like in the sky. They were almost like spaceships. Oh my goodness! And then that was mind blowing. Then the internet came. Like, wow, ChatGPT had the fastest million users than anybody. And that should tell us something. That's AI.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Where are we going?
Yeah. And historically, we've only truly had about 500 years of science. When you think back to the beginning of either computer processing or even the invention of how we use metals and materials to put them together to create the vehicles or to create the computers. We've only had about 500 years of science in the millions and millions of years of humanity. And those 500 years, if you were to talk, it's only 5 generations before you get to the first person that was realizing what science truly was. So it's not that far away that we've advanced, but you're right. From a technology standpoint, things are moving fast. And I think from the future, I think what's happening rather quickly is the combination or the combining of search bars into a voice assistant. I think what's happening on the internet is every single website you log into, claims that their data is their own data, like data as their resource or data as their like proprietary information. And the search bar that's on that website is for you to be able to crawl that information. So me specifically, I know that if I log into Airbnb, I probably have a historical search history of places that I like to travel or places that I like to go to. But I'm not using VRBO, for example, and VRBO doesn't know anything about me. So me as a human, I know to log into Airbnb, and I can do the same thing with Uber and Lyft. I use Uber, not Lyft, but it's the same service. And Uber has all of my information and Lyft has none of it. And that would be great if Lyft could understand if I was to order a taxi that they could service me better in the future at that time, at that point, because they have more vehicles in the area and they're cheaper. Right. But I would never know because my information's in Uber. So I think what happens in the future is the search bar goes away from the apps and it comes into the assistant. So if I buy a Google phone, I'm going to have Google Gemini. And by using Google Gemini, I'm going to use the one search bar that lives with Gemini, and I'm going to order my taxi from that search bar. Which means that all of the apps, all of the devices, all of the other companies that are building products that live on a laptop or a mobile phone are going to have to play nicely with that assistant, because they're going to want to service through an agent and through an API the best experience for the human calling that taxi. Right. And whether it's an applet or whether it's an API, I'm still not sure. But I do know that once you start using Gemini, and I have a Google Pixel 9, so it's the first time in my life that I've ever used a voice assistant as much as this. People are going to get addicted to it. Yeah. You're going to realize that even if it's the wrong answer, it was still the easiest answer for me to get and put my phone back down. And I've been using it with my kids. I've been using it with just different things in my life that I used to pick up and search and spend a minute with. Now I'm just spending seconds, and I even put the phone down because it talks back to me. I can respond in natural language. I can say, stop, you're going in the wrong direction. Please, alter the conversation this way. It's getting very close to having a virtual assistant. And the more I use it, the more I'm addicted to it. And I'm one of the first people in the world to have this on a Google Pixel 9 because everybody on an iPhone has not had this experience. And so as that voice assistant becomes the de facto search, I do think we're going to see a change in the internet where I never need to visit a website. Why would I go to www.whatever to use that search bar to find the information? Because I know I need a toaster delivered to my house. I don't need to go to all those places. I just need to ask the voice assistant for the best toaster because mine just broke and I loved mine. Can you get me the same toaster delivered to my doorstep? I don't care how it happens. I'm willing to pay $29 for it, but that needs to happen in a more automated way. Yep. I don't need to visit Amazon to check it out.
Right. Absolutely, Andrew. We'll have that to you by 12 p.m.
Yeah. And what even better, imagine if, like I said, can I get a toaster? And 4 showed up at my doorstep. I open them all up and I say, I want that one, and I can return the other 3.
Ooh. Hey, look, that's everything is fathomable, man. Everything is. Once I saw the monkeys, once I saw the monkey pass away and his consciousness still inside the computer, I said, okay, we're going far. we can do a lot of things now.
I don't know that story. I'll have to look that one up.
Yes, look up the monkey's consciousness in the computers. And the monkey passed away, but they actually had his consciousness stored, and you know how they digitized that. Yeah. And so now they're communicating with him, and he's doing all the things he did when he was alive. It's really fascinating. But it makes sense though. It makes sense because, like, we don't know what we don't know. And like you said, I like what you just said that 500 years. I never looked at it like condensed like that. You're right. We've accelerated, but the rate that we've accelerated lately, it's actually what is it called? It's sci-fi-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels sci-fi-ish, but the Anthropic CEO just put out a great white paper or an essay about the speed at which AI is being adopted. And he has a great point that everything we've ever invented throughout those 500 years has always hit the biological wall. Even with COVID, if you remember, we had mRNA, and it was possible to release that immediately, and it was possible to go through the testing much faster. But we still have the politics, the red tape, the approvals, the lab tests. All of those are human installed roadblockers and human installed ways to make sure that things are safe. And AI is going to experience the same thing. There are biological factors that will stop the speed just because humans they move slow when they see new technology. I mean, think the internet, right? The internet.com bubble was in 1999 and 2000, right? And then all of a sudden in 2004, once Obama got elected, they started to use the internet for politics. But it wasn't until 2016 that the internet had social media, that it had the ability to pretty much hack social media or put advertisements on your phone that could sway the American public. Like there were the true use of the internet came almost 15 years after the bubble.
Right.
And that means that it took people that long to understand how to use it for their favor or for bad.
Right.
And I think AI is going to have that same path. I don't know if it's going to be 15 years. Of course, we're moving fast when we use this technology with our clients, but the actual bottlenecks are still the humans adapting to it, learning from it, using from it, and all that. So it's still going to take time for us to fully understand what it's capable of.
Good stuff, man. All right, Andrew, we're coming in for a landing, man. Give us your best piece of business advice. And
I have a lot of entrepreneurs that ask me, how do I do what I do? Or how can I learn from being an entrepreneur, and what type of career path should I take? I think the business advice I give people is two things. One is, as soon as you get out of college, go to a big company, work for a big boss, hopefully a really bad boss, so that you can learn what it feels like to be in that shoes, and be an entrepreneur. Be someone that comes up with ideas and is an apprentice to the people at that company, where you're giving them everything you got, but you're giving up ownership of it to make other people look better. And if you learn that at an early age, you'll go far, because every president, CEO, C-suite person wants to look good. And if they can find these apprentices that are willing to do the work and hustle and not take ownership and not take credit for it, you're going to be seeing things at a young age at that C level that most people wouldn't have that opportunity to, just because you're a part of the show and you're a part of the workforce that's willing to be there when they come calling. If you can pull that off, it gives you the ability to then leave the company in 5-10 years and start your own company, because you have all the knowledge and you've seen how big companies work.
Well, that's good. Good advice. Good advice. And what about, do you have a favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I'm not a big quote guy. I just have a bad memory. But there is a quote that I do love from Beautiful Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay.
About there's a thing about vessels in there. And if I could memorize it perfectly, I would repeat it back to you. But if anyone knows that quote, I think it's one of my favorite things about how to be of yourself and enjoy who you are as a human, and also realize that you're just part of a larger universe, and the universe is really what moves things around, and you're just kind of enjoying the show.
I love that, man. That's my motto and my lifestyle as well. Yeah. You know, we're individuals, but we are a part of the collective. And the more that we understand that, the better the collective moves.
There you go. See, you got a better memory than me of how quotes work. I couldn't repeat any of the quotes that I learned. I just know when I enjoy one. Yeah,
man. That's good stuff, Andrew. What's the best way for folks to to reach out to you, and anything else you want to share about anything you're working on?
Sure. So we build AI products. We've been building it for 8 years. We do workshops that allow you to understand which product you should build for your company. If you're a 10 million plus revenue company, we can create a product for you for a few $100,000 that should create millions of dollars in return. And that is our proof, and our use cases and our case studies that are on our website. You'll see all of those proofs that have done that in the past for our previous clients. But I write every Sunday night on LinkedIn, and I post 5 times a week, sometimes 7 times a week if I write enough on Sunday night. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see some of the insights and some of the stuff we're doing that's really cool in the AI world.
Good stuff, man. And you guys can connect with whether you're watching this or listening to this. Just go down to the description. You'll be able to click on Andrew's link and connect with him. And listen, you don't know what you don't know. So get around somebody who knows more than you, and you might know more than you knew before. Until
Another
next
great
time.
quote. There you go.